Good afternoon, Tenja. You are here and it's your last day in Bhopal. We are done with the conference. We are done being the keynote speaker and you are having sessions with the students in this university. So the last 1 week, how do you like it here?
It's overwhelming, in a good way. In a good way. I packed my suitcase this morning, and I made a note to myself: whenever traveling to India as a guest, take a large suitcase, because you've made me feel so very welcome, and there's a lot of gifts, and I'm not taking them back. So my suitcase is sort of exploding now. But more important, what I found here is that people are very enthusiastic to discuss journalism and discuss communication, and I met a lot of curiosity. I met a lot of questions, good questions, and people who really want to think about their jobs. Well, that's good, I think.
Okay, so you met mostly with all the journalism students, so that is why they were very curious to know things from senior journalists. So tell me something, was it since forever that you knew you wanted to be a journalist? Like since school days, we all have an ambition that this is what I want to do in life.
Yes.
So was this journalism for you that?
Well, I think when I was 6 years old, I wanted to become a writer or a singer. But when I was 16 years old and we had to make a decision about what university to go to, then I decided to become a journalist. But it was, well, something like, okay, I like writing, I'm going to become a journalist. And I didn't even read newspapers, I didn't watch the news shows on television. So I had no idea of what journalism was really about. But then I started writing immediately, because it was a way to get into the university automatically. And at university, I really found that this is my profession.
That's that for you.
Yes, it's a way to. I always think that we journalists, we are very lucky, because there are not many professions in which you can do what you like. I mean, for instance, I love architecture, and I used to write about architecture for my newspaper for some time, and then I got to interview big architects, and they showed me around in their buildings. So to me, it was like being able to do my hobby and get paid for it as well.
Okay.
And I'm very curious, and I love to write. So both come together in journalism.
So how long has it been since you are in this industry? Must be, I guess, more than 2 decades.
I went to the university when I was 18. I'm 58 now, so that's 30 or 40 years ago. Yes.
That's
18,
a
28, 38, 40, 40 years. 40 years, yes. Grandma. No, so I went to university when I was 18. I started working as a journalist when I was 21.
Okay.
And then when I was approaching 50, I switched from the newspaper to become a teacher of journalism. I did that until 2015, and then I became the managing director of the Association of Investigative Journalists in my country.
So you've been a teacher, okay, and you've seen students in our university as well. So what do you think is the basic difference in thinking patterns, or in the mindset, or inquisitiveness of students here and back in your university? What do you think is the major difference, or they are alike?
I didn't see any major differences, and that is because students are very different. And there are a lot of reasons why people want to become a journalist, or want to become a graphic designer, or want to go into digital media. And that's good. I mean, if all journalists, if all people in media were the same, then we would start to rule the world, which would be very dangerous, because we're a bit too opinionated for that. So what did I see? Yes, of course there are differences, but there were differences within the groups as well. There were 3 groups that were very friendly and mild, and there was one group that was sort of feisty, with very opinionated. So yes, they come in all sorts and flavors, here as well as in my country. Yes.
So if I talk about the teaching method in India and back in Netherlands, So what's the difference in that in the basic media education system of our country and back in Netherlands? What's the difference in that?
I haven't got really enough information to make the comparison. So maybe it would be better if I very briefly explained how education is being done in my country, so everyone here who knows how it's being done in your country can compare for themselves. To become a journalist in my country, you basically, it's a free profession, so anyone can become a journalist. You can be a historian and start to write and you're a journalist. But if you want to do an education, you have basically there are two routes. You have the University of Applied Sciences, and that is a very hands-on study. So you begin with the first 6 months, you are working as a journalist, making your own website with very hyper-local news. So you're being sent out into an area of a town, for instance, and you cover that area. And then you get the slow news. You get lots of trainings on how to write the news, how to interview, how to research, how to do storytelling, things like that. And the second leg of this education is that you get a lot of information, knowledge about politics, economics, psychology, sociology, all the things that you need to know as a journalist to get a basic grip on society, the society you are writing or broadcasting about. That's the one study possibility. There's another one that's the more academic university. So, for instance, you can do a bachelor in sociology and then do a master in journalism. And then you could, for instance, specialize yourself in research or in digital media. But then it would be more up level, slightly more academic, more reflection, more thinking, theorizing, things like that.
So, if I can, make a conclusion with that, I think education system mostly is somewhat similar because this is what we do here. We first train the students, we give them practical assignments, we send them to various events to cover them as journalists. They come, they write reports, they edit it. So somewhat I guess
and they do a
is
traineeship
similar.
as well, and yes.
Internship after semester. So I guess it is somewhat similar.
Okay.
So in the morning today you told me that you worked as the managing director of an investigative journalism department. So what was it like there?
It still is. It's an association of investigative journalists, but the members are not just investigative journalists. Membership is open to anyone who practices investigative journalism or is interested in. You have to be a student of journalism or a journalist or a professor of journalism or somebody else who is important to our profession. The board can decide to make exceptions. And what we basically do is, like you have Greenpeace or World Wild Fund, and they take care of animals, they protect animals. Well, journalists don't really need to be protected in that way, but the association, it enhances the quality of investigative journalism. So it promotes investigative journalism, and we are all about, I'm still a member, so I can say we are all about three things. It's networking, it's expertise building, and it's, oh my God, kennis, network, and lobbying, advocacy for investigative journalism. That was Dutch, what I just said, oh my God, in Dutch. So that's what we do, and I think it's very important that there are organizations like VVOJ, which is the name in my country, to support investigative journalism. And there are many organizations like this all over the world, and there is a global investigative journalism network that organizes big conferences. They've just started in Asia a few years ago. They go to Asia, Africa, they go to Europe, and every 2 years there's the global conference. And there we meet each other, we network, we present each other with our investigations, and we talk about lessons learned, which is important, I think.
So what do you feel is the basic difference between journalism and investigative journalism? What's the basic difference?
There are certain levels of journalism. So if we start at the lowest level would be what happened. So you come home, supposing we were to share a house, you would come home and I say, how was your day? And you would tell me what happened. Now, the second level is, what does it mean?
Okay.
So a lot of people can get sick in the street, and we will report on people getting sick in the street. And then we will want to know, but why did they get sick? And is there some sort of collective meaning to this? So we would start to report in depth on what's going on. Now, investigative journalism takes it one level further. And the level further is that we try to investigate what the structures and the systems are that are behind the news.
Okay.
So take, for instance, the Panama Papers. We all know the Panama Papers. We already knew that there was a lot of tax avoidance and misuse of tax rules, but it were all incidents. And what happened during the Panama Papers was that all these incidents came together, and people started to investigate and try to make some sort of they were mapping out, connecting the dots. And so in the end, we could answer the question, what is the system that makes it possible that all over the world, big companies and rich people can avoid paying taxes? And that is important, because if you know what the structure, the underlying structures and systems are, then you can start thinking about changing things.
So mostly investigative journalism is about digging more into the facts.
Yes,
What a normal journalist would do.
It's digging below the surface and finding out what connects the individual news items. Yes.
So this is your last day, and it was really good. I can say that this on behalf of all the students here who have interacted with you, and they really enjoyed it. They, as I was there in the session that you were in, they said that it was very good gaining knowledge from someone who's so senior in this industry. So thank you so much for being here. It was our honor to have met you, to have gained so much of information from you, and we really hope, as the whole university, that we get to meet you soon someday. Next.
I would love to do a training conference here. That would be so great, to really have 2 days in which all students and teachers can look at examples of journalistic work and draw lessons from that. So best practices. And then ask each other, okay, but what is good journalism? How can you see in this case that it's good journalism? And I'm sorry, I'm being very bold here. I'm inviting myself to come back. But
That is something that we really want.
Yes.
We want you to come back.
But it was very inspiring for me to be here as well. And let's not think that I came here to tell you things, because you taught me a lot of things as well. I really mean that. There's a big collection here of good brains, and I hope you can make real good use of it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.